I never went back home again. So I was 18 or 19 at the time. And at that time when I first moved to LA and it was pilot season and, you know, we were all sleeping on couches and doing that whole thing, there was agonizing years, it felt like, of, you know, wondering if you were going to be able to, if it was going to happen, or your visa's running out, your money's running out, all those kind of things, which are difficult. But in hindsight, I think it would be a bit remiss of me to say that I had a difficult path. Obviously, relatively, everyone's journey is their own thing, and you see it in your own way. But if I just look at the time that it's taken, it is. I've been incredibly blessed to be in the place I'm in now, making the movies that I'm making. You know.
Yeah, 8 years is not a super long time.
It's not. No, not in the scheme of things.
When Nate came along, when Euphoria came along, did you struggle at all with this kind of unlikable character?
No, he wasn't unlikable to me, really. It was a job. First of all, I was like, I'm about to make a TV series for HBO, which isn't just television, you know, and it was partnered with A24, which at the time was like, I mean, still exploding, but like it was fresh exploding. Like that was where, you know, cinema was being made in that time period, and it was just so exciting to be given the antagonist in this piece, and you know, and to be trusted with it, and he grew and developed so much. You know, the scenes that I auditioned with were quite, you know, this generic jock, you know, type kind of guy, and as Sam and I met, it felt like he kind of expanded and became this really interesting, complex human being. And you know, we get to see all the abuse that he's endured in his life. You get to see, you know, what made the apple go bad, and I think that as an actor that's sort of what you look for in a character. You know, you look for those redeeming elements to show like why somebody is horrible or why somebody is cruel. You know, we're not as base as our actions. You know, there's always a story behind everything. So Nate for me was also my first kind of invitation into a project that had a multi-layered character and characters that people had thought about, and teenagers that, you know, these teenage characters that had been given respect, and they weren't just completely sexualized. They were given thoughts and feelings and that. So it felt like a really special thing to be a part of.
Makes sense. Complexity.
Yeah.
What's it like coming back to Nate after doing other projects?
It was so much fun, you know, because you have this 5 or 6 year gap that you have to consider and think about his life. But for me, I kind of took a similar ethos to how I was shooting Frankenstein. I promised myself I wouldn't think about it too much, and I would just sort of lay myself at Sam Levinson's feet and just sort of do what he asked. And I think we ended up finding something that was exciting and different, because the idea of playing the same thing over and over again as a television trope, you know, it kind of feels like dying a little bit. So hopefully it's exciting. I'm nervous to talk about it because I haven't seen it.
I totally get it. Yeah, you also don't want to give away too much. I get that.
I couldn't give anything away if I tried. It's like, you know, it's a secret society over there.
Are you the same way with him as you were with Frankenstein, that you dive fully in to Nate?
Yeah. When I mean the first 2 seasons, that was my, you know, nothing existed except shooting Euphoria and playing Nate. So, but even the kissing booth is the same way. I remember fighting arguing with the studio or the director because I had the paperback of the kissing booth, and I had highlighted all the times. I was like, he's smoking a cigarette. I said, why do I not have a cigarette? I said, well, we can't have cigarettes for the young audience. And I was like, right, but he's smoking a cigarette. The character smokes a cigarette. And I remember fighting over this cigarette like it was like his absolute truth, you know. So I've had the same sort of process my whole life. It's all consuming, and, you know.
And you really want to be you dive in.
Yeah, to the extent that you can be, or if that's just like some state that you convince yourself of, I'm not sure. But yeah, partly because of nerves. Like I have to believe myself before I think, before the audience does. So to even get to set and stand in front of, a 400 people crew and in this little costume and, put a voice on, I have to really, really believe it. So that requires like a lot of time with myself, beforehand and sort of trying to live in the character. And then there's just the enjoyment element of it, being able to get lost in something, being able to go searching with a character, finding out about yourself through a character, finding out about the world. And at the very least, it'll lead you to like a whole sort of subsection of literature that you didn't know about before you started the research process. There's so much to be taken from it. I've been thinking a lot recently about magpies, the birds, and bowerbirds, and that's what I like in the process too. It's like you're building this brand new nest and you're kind of just flying around the place, picking up the shiny things, picking up food, picking up string, and then you take it all back to your nest and you sort of make a pretty little thing that you like, and then I guess you give it to the world,
That's a great visual analogy too.
Yeah,
So
picture
what
a magpie when you think of me acting.
Picture magpie when you think of Jacob
May I just have a
Elordi.
sip of it?
Of course.
Thank you.